Yeah, we need to remember the Buchanan family. Them, they had lost their husband. After a long fight, it was a long fight, he took a long fight to fight cancer.
Who was the young lady that died up there and had those two kids that Ronnie was actually,
I don't know. Rhonda, do you know? Oh, she went to Forget Her Bible. I don't know.
I found her name, but I didn't know her.
I didn't know him. I don't know if the kids go by the same last name at school. I don't know, but I didn't recognize him. And I've never heard anything else about it except through her.
Yeah.
But we're also live right now.
Yeah.
What?
The lady of the two girls that passed away.
I don't know her, but Ronnie was telling me.
Well, see, that's what I said. That's the only thing I've seen is what Ronnie sent out on the church thing. I've never heard anything else. Don't know who they are. Do they go to our school?
Yeah. But they live in Winning, I think they come from Winning or something, because the dad lived out of state. And the grandmother said, just told him he needed to get back, take care of the kids. And so she said he'd been taking care of them while this was going on. But I said, well, have they come back to school? He said, yeah, and they're considerably pretty good, that have lost their mother. So
Wow.
I don't, she said, I figure they'll move with him,
What kind of surgery she had?
I don't know the surgery. I didn't, I just knew it was a common surgery, they said.
Let's keep that those words. Is there anybody else? Wait for Alan's allergies, that he'll dry up someday before Christmas. You had two nurses getting after you at church.
Yeah, we did.
I don't know, you had much choice, so.
Rachel was very quiet. She was very proud that Hannah was picking up the torch.
I think Hannah handled it perfectly.
Hi.
Hi, Miss Macy, how are you today?
Hi, James. Hi, Brian. We see who ranks in here, okay? Up there for us. Hi, baby girl. Here's my hug. Oh, did he not say good?
All right.
Need a hug?
But anybody else who needs to add to the word? Anybody else we need to put on the card list?
I'll be preaching on the 19th of October in Rapid City, so.
Rattlers, City of America,
Yeah.
home of the Rattlers.
Are they?
Yeah.
Rattle?
Yeah. They're-
I guess I never knew that.
Yeah, they play at the Bible field.
Did it really? Oh, shit. I don't really know much about Rapid City.
I've
I
repaired
was
it.
thinking they were Badgers for some reason, I don't know.
I got to check.
You want to know what I know about Rattler City? The population is 64,
He's probably on.
All right, buddy.
which is crazy to me. There's so much business there.
Yeah. What is it?
Well, here it is, dude. Word. Hey, can you say snack? Say snack.
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 Oh,
Of course not. Of course not. I've been saying it all day today.
well, I see it.
He's like, yes, I'm aware. You're getting my snack.
All right. While we get settled here, let's open with a word of prayer. Lord, thank you for this day today, and thank you for the church service this morning. I want you to be with those that's lost loved ones this week, take care of them. Also be with those that are struggling with some health issues, them well and safe. Give me the words to speak tonight about Noah. I ask that you continue to let our church be the light we need to be. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. We're going to be in chapter 8, starting with verse 1. That's what we're going to be. Chapter 8, verse 1. We're going to go 1 through 17. We're gonna cover more than 3 verses tonight.
Here. Pretty assertive there.
I'm pretty assertive. We have people that have their homework ready to turn in, unlike others who do not.
Looking at you.
I have my homework, thank you.
All right, start with verse 1. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark. And he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. And at the end of 150 days, the water had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month. And on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the window and he had made in the ark and sent out a raven. And it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove could find no place to set his feet because there was water all over the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days. And again, he sent out the dove from the ark. And when the dove returned to him on the evening, there was a bright, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. But Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again. But this time it did not return. By the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the second month of the earth, the earth had completely dried. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you. The birds, the animals, and all the creatures that moved along the ground, so they could multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in their number of That's where we start. Okay. Kind of an interesting story, right? Not much to it, right?
Contraire.
Yeah.
First off is, I don't care how big the ark is, if you block Mark up in the ark for this long a time, I'm gonna tear the roof off before.
One more leave to crack a window. And I'll probably do this being claustrophobic.
We're gonna have to at least see outside. The most amazing thing is what the first statement is in this. Okay? But God remembered Noah. Do you think God forgot Noah?
No.
Oh, but it's weird, you know, how, why it would say like that, be stated like that.
Could there be another way to phrase that?
Well, again, Alan, you can probably correct me on this, or Daddy, for that matter. The Greek, I think, is not the idea of like remembered as he forgot something, but I think the context was like in a loving, like thinking of manner, like he was thinking in a loving manner. I guess it was hard for I only briefly read over it, but I think that's what that was. It's like the idea of in the Greek, but again, I could be wrong.
Well, it's like when you say he remembered so-and-so. It's not that he forgot, it's he was thinking of it.
Right.
Right. He was,
No, okay.
What are the words?
I'm not disagreeing with y'all.
I don't have
Okay.
a problem with it, it's just like if a new reader or a new
Right.
Christian.
Right.
Or
Right.
someone that doesn't, not a Christian, just speaks the word and they read it, because you're not gonna start in Genesis, they're gonna, if you're an
Right.
immature person and you've never read the word, I would start in Genesis.
Well, I mean, I most of the time I would recommend that you should, because it gives you the full context of everything that happens in the New Testament. But in this case, this would be something that you would have to seek out to understand why these are so important. Because a new Christian would have questions.
A new Christian would have to take and read Genesis or even any of the Old Testament and understand that you're going like, man, God repeats himself a lot. Or man, why does it seem like sometimes we're talking about things that happened in the past, but it's really talking about things that are gonna happen in the future, It can be really difficult until you kind of get some basic principles how it works. But I don't think this is really what we're talking about. I think it's really the context, and it also shows the limitations of the English language. Because remember can mean many things.
Well, it's just like in a funeral thing or whatever it says, or even the front of the
Right.
deal at
In
the church, in
remembrance of me.
remembrance of me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good point. But also too, if talking about some of the things that may be difficult for like an early Christian to understand. This would be one. Another one that would be a challenge, and again, we probably talked about it a week or two ago, but the idea of when God initiated the flood, it says like in this one was the NIV version says that he was grieved that he had created mankind. But in the King James, it says that he regretted creating mankind. So again, how can God regret creating anything? Again, and
When
why
your kids are teenagers, you'll figure it out.
do what? I'm sorry, what?
So when your kids are teenagers, you'll figure it out.
Because they'll know what
Yeah,
everything.
but again, God created mankind. He again, with foreknowledge, he knew was the route that was gonna happen, right? So then, how would he regret doing something?
But
So
I honestly believe the real word grieve would be probably
the Greek is more close to what the original, like Greek translation would be, versus like the King James. Again, English translations fall short at times, and that's the case. And I think in this case it is as well.
But let's go back again. But God remembered Noah. I'm thinking like, could this be telling us that God never left Noah, but now he's gonna come back and deal with Noah in even more of a personal relationship than he's been through the flood?
Well, like my,
Because once he shut him in, things are good, right? Once God shut him in into the ark, him and the animals and everything, God's plan, he's good. And God's, I don't know, I don't want to limit God's
So
plan.
that's a bit of dangerous route to take because
Right.
you find that God's not doing one thing.
Right, that's what I want to say, it's right there. I don't want to limit what God can do, but then I say, the focus then is on the flood and the destruction of the earth.
Literary, the literary way
Yeah.
to understand it. God was there with Noah in the ark. God was there with him while he's in the ocean of floating water. God was also there destroying the earth. So again, literary way, you look in with a microscope at Noah and you pull back to look at what God did to the earth and you hone back in on the magnifying glass on Noah.
Okay, so you got the right track, so let's take it like a story. We go from focusing our attention to the destruction of the earth, we're now focusing back on Noah. So that's the key to this, is like God remembered Noah. So our story takes its focus from the flood back to Noah. Does that make sense?
Well, you're seeing the same thing happen with even the first 7 chapters to this, because again, you have the big focus. God created the heavens and the earth, focusing on mankind. And then once mankind is fallen, we focus back out on all of mankind. And then we focus back in again on Noah, then back to the world and what's going on, and back to Noah again. You see that back and forth through the literary writing style of Moses.
Have you got credit to Moses? Oh, there you are, good, thank you. All right. So, we're all kind of in agreement, God did not forget Noah, right? So we're good, all right, I feel like we're all together on this. I feel good.
I don't know if anybody actually translated it this way, but I've always thought of it, God's attention returned to Noah.
I like that too. I like that too. So, I tried 13 different colors for the deal, and I still can't find a color, because if I put it in black, it disappears. If I put it in white, it disappears. So, but I loved the little design. So we had to stick with it. What did God send to dry up the water?
The wind,
What, say again, sir?
wind,
What did God send to dry up the water?
wind.
The Oklahoma wind.
When the wind comes sweeping out of the plane.
I'm gonna share a story with you. So this is just because I've lived on the river all my life. Buzz can kind of help me out here. Every time it floods, the water gets out and it will cover, because the Washita River is not a clear river, is it?
No.
What color does the water run? No, it runs mud. It's just shy of paste, okay? It's a little more liquidy than paste. When the water comes in, it will coat everything. If you've seen a field covered with, after the flood, it's coated all over with that silt. And it's that color all the way. But the amazing thing is, usually after you have a flood like that and it recedes, the wind starts blowing. And you'll have a rain in a day or so. And it will wash that all away. God's perfect plan of how he deals with stuff. See, if the silt stayed on there and the wind blew and dried it out, all the plants would die. But really and truly, when the wind picks up all the moisture, it'll start raining and wash everything off and start it. Now, here, God sent a wind. Now remember, Noah and the family and all of the animals are locked up in the ark. And they do not see what's going on outside. So we don't know what kind of wind God sent. It was probably a big one. Okay? And it probably blew all the time. My idea is the wind blew from the southwest, because when the wind blows from the southwest here, it's gonna dry out. I guarantee you. Matter of fact, you better get them beans in the ground soon. It ain't gonna get them up.
The craziest sustained wind I think I've ever experienced was in Colorado. McKenzie and I were up there, and it was about 5 degrees outside, and the wind was blowing about 65 miles an hour for like 10 hours. It just did not stop. Remember that? All the windows were for 10 hours, and then finally we realized, stop blowing.
You can understand, but a good wind will always follow a flood. Always. Oh, by the way, what day did it rain that we saw the big rainbow? It's been about 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, and it was low. It was a
Yeah.
low rainbow.
Because at our house, of course, not everybody has the same view, but our house, it was the brightest rainbow I think I've ever seen in my whole life. Matter of fact, if I could have thrown Barbie pretty far, she might have landed with the car coat.
Time that goes.
They added something else. He also, this is God also closed the springs of the deep, the floodgates of heaven, and the rain stopped. Now, this is just reiterating that the rain stopped after 40 days. But this is also telling us that God ended the judgment, right? The judgment is now ended. Now it's the recovery. With me so far? Okay. Now, before we take into this, I didn't pick this because I believe this. I picked this because even today, the story of Noah is greatly not greatly. The curiosity level is very, very high. Okay? Does that make sense? Also, where it said that the ship came to rest, please don't think about it came to rest and it was there. Alan and the boat that they built in Tennessee, did they put
Kentucky.
any ballast at the bottom of the boat?
In Kentucky.
I mean, in Kentucky. Did they have ballast in the bottom?
It was really, really complicated, yes. And they used the ballast to change that moved pumps that circulated air through
So
and out.
it was like a bellow.
It was very much so. And so, their engineering idea, that was one of the things that just fascinated me the most, was they had, from a seamanship
Right.
perspective, this thing was an architectural masterpiece.
So
Now,
they're-
did Noah
they're-
build it that way, or did God float it boat? I don't know.
Well, I'm not going, I'm gonna go down a path too that's not in the Bible. But they're gonna talk about some things about anchor stones. And when we get to the end here, I'll come back to that, okay? But yes, there's always ballast at the bottom of the boat.
What is ballast?
Ballast is they put it, so like how a boat is curved like this, it's got that bottom. The ballast, they put it in the very bottom of the boat so that the boat won't just fall over.
Oh, okay.
That ballast holds it down, holds the gravity, holds it true. Now, this doesn't matter, this is why this came up. During World War II, at Corregidor, y'all know where that's at, Philippines. During World War II at Corregidor, all of the treasury of the Philippines was called Corregidor. And then they had to figure out, because when they figured out they weren't gonna be rescued, they started trying to figure out how to get all the gold and silver and everything from the Philippine government on away from Corregidor. And they actually brought submarines in, and they unloaded all the ballast in the submarine and took the gold and silver and put it back in as ballast. And they carried the silver and gold and all the treasury out of the Philippines on submarine because they couldn't get any ships. That's when I thought about ballast. That's useless knowledge. It's completely useless knowledge. So, oh, by the way, MacArthur wouldn't leave on a submarine because he thought it made him look bad. So he wrote out a PD boat. So very good. Has nothing to do with this. All right. It's gonna try to play a commercial, but I wanna be quick. Hang on. Whoa. Yes, it was. Somebody better crank the. We'll see how loud it is.
I don't know.
Why do I not? Fine. That's all. Probably.
Hey.
Oh, thank you so much. This is all on it. That's all. Enough of it. What am I missing? Something's not what this.
Jennifer promised she didn't unplug anything.
Yeah. This is-
This is not.
Yeah, that one is the blue lights on.
Good thing the commercial was playing. I'm not missing something else.
Hello.
It's a good thing I got you.
Only because I've done the same thing. Why won't this work?
All right, slide.
Yeah.
So right when I got home and started taking it easy with the osteoporosis, boom, we moved to this cool new place in the city.
Just at the edge of this officially announced as Noah's Ark by the Turkish government. Tons of research done on it, lots of dismissal saying it's a geological formation. And how come they found
He's
all
a
this
Turk.
petrified wood, metal and other such things here?
Amazing.
I'm standing here just on the edge of this so-called Noah's Ark. It looks like it's a basalt formation according to geologists, but I think there's a kind of sense of like something strange going on here. Why is this shape occurring in the landscape? Well, it's the same, like 300 cubits wood, 500 feet, 515 doing the end bits. And how come they found all this petrified wood and metal and other such things here? The fact it's kind of just here, we went somewhere completely different else, you know, another part of the world, another part of the country. Yeah, this is controversial to say the least, but this is a site it's near Mount Ararat, so it's near Van, Lake Van in eastern Turkey, almost towards Armenia, really. We were actually, this was part of our tour we did within September, we were doing this kind of Eastern Turkey Garden of Eden kind of tour. And this is the biblical location of where Noah's Ark was supposed to have landed in the biblical tradition. It's on the edges of Mount Ararat. This isn't actually on Mount Ararat, so it's on the next bunch in front of it, just next to it. You can literally see Ararat just behind it. There was a researcher back in the 70s, the whole thing about it, claimed it was Noah's Ark. Some people say it's just what's left of geological anomaly, which you get, you know, these strange shapes that look like kind of almonds, or, you know, like this kind of shape, like a single Pisces, middle of a single Pisces. And it's huge, and Ron White, he was there in the 70s and 80s. Doing a ton of research. He claims to have found wood, rotted wood, or fossilized wood. He even claims to have found metal parts. And all this other evidence, measurements, placement of it, and everything else, proving it was Noah's Ark. It even went through government officials. They agreed it was Noah's Ark. They did an opening for a visit centre there, which you can still visit with photos and everything that's up there. And they still, a lot of people still think it's really Noah's Ark, but we had a geologist with us, and he was saying, no, he doesn't think so. It's very unusual geology, which just happens to match the dimensions of Noah's Ark in the Bible. So there's still controversy about it. Some people still claim it is the remains, the remnants of, you know, Noah's Ark. Others say no, it's geology, but jury's out. But we had to go there and have a look. It really is compelling because it's like, firstly, you're in this biblical area. You know, it really is the Bible area. This is it. This is the Garden of Eden. This Noah's Ark land, blood's receded and everything else. So, you know, it kind of springs out this kind of magic when you're there, because you get this sort of sense of these biblical traditions, but at the same time, your scientific brain kicks in, and you're kind of asking many, many hard questions, trying to get your head around it. But yes, fascinating place. I mean, if you do go to Ararat, we do go to Van, it's worth the effort to get up and have a look for yourself, make up your own mind. As Andrew, they're walking along the edge of the Noah's Ark formation here. So it's not the lower one here, the one that's up there. It goes all the way across. You see where it sticks up there. Then you've got the guys trying to get down from it, and then we've got Mount Ararat over in the distance behind those trees. I kind of kept the kind of overblind and sort of was feeling the magic of the place a little bit because there was something special about that whole area. I had never been there before, and there's also nearby, there's some of these standing stones that are called the anchor stones. These are found in the local villages. They're used gate posts over the middle of village squares. And these are quite large stones, a few feet tall, with holes cut through them. So people believe, Ron Wyatt, one of them, that these were the anchors of Noah's Ark. That's why they got the name the anchor stone. But they're also, these are also traditional Armenian gravestones. That's one of the other associations with them. You actually find similar things like that at the site in Kalahunj, nearby Armenia, which is a massive stone circle complex with avenues coming off it over the border in Armenia. So, yeah, there's debates about all the different aspects of this, but it's fascinating area. Really interesting perspective here, kind of down at the base of it. You kind of see the shaping of it behind me. Obviously, the aerial shots give a much better perspective. But I'm just fascinated by this. It's kind of this biblical kind of part of the landscape here in Turkey. Officially announced as Noah's Ark by the Turkish government. Tons of research done on it. Lots of dismissals saying it's a geological formation. But yeah, it's just fascinating to be here and witness something so majestic. There we have Mount Ararat, with a strange green formation. Then we have this. We've got a really good view of it. This one down here, you can actually sort of see the shape of the so-called boat or ship of Noah. Absolutely fascinating. Really interesting perspective just to be able to see it from the base, the lower kind of front of the so-called Noah's Ark or the geological formation. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, it's like one of them places that, I mean, half the guests really liked it when they got that tour, and the other half were like, why are we here, Hugh? Really, so there's like a bit of a kind of split when it comes to visiting sites where it's that controversial. But I've got to be honest with you, if you go, it's worth going anyway because it's a beautiful area and you get to see so much more of it in general. And next time we're going to go and find the anchor stones. Actually have a look at them. Because even if they're just megaliths, holes carved in, like Armenian gravestones are very, very interesting nonetheless. But yeah, I mean, you look at the evidence, you look at all the data Ron White and others put together since I think Ron White passed a few years ago, and it's compelling. You have to admit it is a compelling story, and it's lots of little very unusual coincidences kind of linking up. If it isn't. So yeah, so it's well worth checking out. Anyway, I wanted just to show you this quickly. We've got permission, we've got a couple of aerial shots of it, so I'll show you above. Let us know what you think in the comments, because it's an absolutely fascinating, beautiful place. Of course, we've got this whole biblical Garden of Eden area where this is located. Of course, you can join us here every September when we come back.
So every year this guy goes back to Turkey and he takes them through like religious sites and just important historical sites in Eastern Turkey. And he included this in one of the details of it. That's the guy that does the little tour. But let me come back for a second. As I was a kid, I was fascinated with the Ark, and that they thought they found the Ark on top of Mount Ararat because it was this guy come down with a burnt log from a glacier that uncovered the Ark. Now we got this guy who in the late 70s, early 80s, he spent his time over there and he said this geological formation where they found metal and they found wood and everything else is where the Ark rested. So come back to the anchor stones. And the reason I started off talking to Alan about ballast is that one of the ways that the older constructions of ship was they would actually tie stones off and hang off the edge of the ship in bad weather so that the ship would stay more stable when it was rocking. And they would tie these stones, anchor stones, onto it. The reason I kind of latched onto that, because the whole story starts with that the ship ran aground or grounded itself. But if you read along, it's like it's still afloat or it's still water all around until the dry land appeared. And so to me, it kind of like, oh, the anchor stones grounded and stopped, but it still hasn't dried the ground up yet. The water's still kind of around it. Because the stones hung down below the boat to kind of give it balance. Now, this I'm not claiming this is right, I'm just saying it's interesting that there's still so much interest that you think you can find where Noah's Ark might still be, which would mean that the Bible's true, right? Even though we all know that. Physical evidence that the Bible's true. I don't believe that probably this is it. It's an interesting thing I thought we would talk about for a second. Any questions about that?
So does he think the ark just disintegrated or?
Well, yeah,
So the,
it was made out of wood.
well, so that there's another guy that I've seen talk about this particular subject as well. So again, this is taking what you would do in this situation. If you were in Noah's shoes, what would you do with all the wood that you used to build the ark? Well, you would use it to build your homes, right? Use it for firewood, use it for whatever you needed to use. And so they believe.
He wasn't gonna flood the earth again, so they didn't need the ark. Yeah,
Right.
they'll
I mean,
reuse the wood.
right, they would have used it for whatever purpose, again, because again, at that point, you would assume that there's on a mountain, no trees, there's
Well,
no.
let me give you an example. So you guys have seen pictures of Rome, and you've seen pictures of the Colosseum. Do you know why the Colosseum looks like it does today?
Because of water.
No. The reason the Colosseum looks like it does today is because after the fall of the empire, they took the Colosseum down for the stones to build other things. So that's why it looks like it's like been partly torn down and so they actually went in there and reused the stones. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's just they could have been torn down, but we're also talking like this is petrified wood.
Right.
Now, has anybody ever been to the petrified forest out Arizona? Is it Arizona or is it Mexico?
Arizona.
Yeah, if you hadn't been, take a detour and go through it. Cause it's pretty cool.
I need to go back. I just went for a few minutes
Well,
with my dad.
when I was there, it was like 1,000 degrees.
That's why we
Also
only
helps in
stayed a few minutes.
That's good.
Well, I'm
Petrified that wood.
sure it was long enough for your dad to steal the petrified wood.
Oh,
that
I'm
you
sure
weren't
he
supposed to
stole
take,
it, yeah.
'cause
They get back in the car, the AC's on.
Her dad loved rocks.
Oh my gosh.
That man loved rocks. Matter of fact, Ron, if you love rocks, you would have been convinced the man had a rock from everywhere. So- But the thing about the 540 is it doesn't just happen.
Mom want that.
Sorry. All right, let's move on for a second.
Well, that's what I was looking at, as I'm looking at the picture, but I could see taller mountains in the background. I mean, why
Yes.
wouldn't it set on that one instead of that lower? the one
So
that-
But
Yeah,
But it was actually, I mean, the arc was just kind of free flow.
Yeah.
So it could have
It could
grounded
just stop anywhere, yeah.
But how did it ground there in a much lower place and everything else was still not covered? I agree, because, you gotta take it for what it is. Let's talk about the birds here a second. I'm gonna get it and keep going. Hang on. Here we go. How many days? Rhonda, what you got?
171.
371. Barbie?
I had 370 to 371.
Okay. Anybody else?
Google had 371.
There you go.
good old trusty Google.
I forgot the question.
You didn't do your homework.
So
No, I did not.
the question was, I asked last week, I said, how many days was Noah on the ark? And if someone is just knows the story kinda, what would they say to you?
40 days.
150.
Or 150, okay. I see that. My grandson just saw his mom come back in the room.
Say, "Mom."
Oh my God. Okay. There's two words that we need to talk about for a second so that you kind of can know what the little chart's saying. All right. Say it, Alan. Say that.
Septuagint.
No, it's not Cushion, it's
No, Septuagint.
Septuagint?
No, it's Septuagint.
Septuagint. That's-
Fine. I tried hard.
Septuagint versus the Masoretic.
All right. So, that one is the Greek version of the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament, including the Apocrypha made for the Greek-speaking Jews in Egypt in the 3rd and 2nd century BC, adopted by the early Christian churches, also known as LXX, which would be 7. Go ahead and know Roman there. Okay. And the Masoretic is the true Jewish canon, which they went in there and, am I doing it right? They went in there and straightened it all up. And
There's less books in the Masoretic than there is. in-
yeah, because they threw out all the Apocrypha.
Well, no. So the Septuagint, it did include the Apocrypha, but the Masoretic, it also included, it's the things that it didn't have was like First and Second Kings. It wasn't like First and Second Kings, it was King. And then you had like, the, First and Second Chronicles. Like there were several that were just one book that was broken apart in the, is that right, Alan? Yeah. They were broken apart in the Septuagint.
Okay. Any other addition on that, Alan?
No, the Masoretic is the de facto standard
Yes.
for the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, it is. It is like the 1088, where they went and canonized all the Bible and everything. See, I was totally unprepared if you have more thought about it, but I wanted to introduce those two words to you because it uses that, they both come up with the same thing. They say 377 days. And they add it all up, and they give you the verses that go with it. So, like, starting with 7:1, that was the week before the flood came, where he told them to get on the ark. And it goes all the way to the end, where Noah, he leaves the ark, at verse 8, chapter 8, verse 14. And they added all the days. Now, I've seen 370, 371, but if you're in the 370 range, you're right in the ballpark. So, but the interesting thing is the duration of the flood was 300 days. Now, that means that whole earth was covered for 300 days. To me, I don't know if anybody would disagree.
Now, it wasn't like it stayed at its peak for that many days. It would just, the water flooded, then it receded. And as it was receding, it didn't happen again for 40 days. It took that long extra period for the water to recede.
Okay, so here's a river rat thing. Y'all ready? How do you know if a river is going up or falling? If it's rising or falling, how do you know?
Or how about trash you on the river?
And where does that trash have to be?
Middle,
Yeah,
If the trash is in the middle, what's it doing, Buzz?
rising,
Yep. What if it's trash is floating on the outside?
it's going down.
At
All
all?
your trash ends up on the sides of the
Do
river.
you know, I don't know, probably been 10 years ago or so when the river got out on us really good.
That was last year.
No, this was back, like the field behind your house was running 2 feet deep.
Oh,
Okay, so I'm looking, all of it goes down, and I start to go out to get ready to work the field, and I picked up a trailer and a pickup load of plastic bottles off the field. Literally filled the pickup up and the trailer up with plastic bottles. I don't know where they all came from, but the wind, when it started to fall, the wind was blowing out of the north. And I think it just kind of pushed it all into the field instead of like staying on the river and sitting in the party, but it was amazing how much, and the worst ones were Gatorade bottles. There must have been 10,000 Gatorade bottles. Has nothing to do with the lesson. We've gotten off track twice. I'm sorry. Okay, so 377, 371, you guys are all in the right ballpark. We're good there. Noah sent out a raven. Why a raven?
Expendable. I have no idea. I just,
Are they,
Are-
I was gonna say like a scavenger, but not really,
You're on the right track.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, they don't necessarily have to have any place to nest. They're scavengers. They live wherever they're at.
And they can live, like, they don't have to be on like a super arid, dry area, they can be like in a swamp. Not like, it doesn't need to be like a,
They're scavengers. They can survive just about
Just
anywhere.
about anything.
Yeah. Ravens are not the same as crows. Yeah. And obviously, the Baltimore Ravens aren't very good this year because they got beat again today. So, sorry.
you get the quarterback.
Okay, so ravens are not the same, but they are
Carnivores.
yeah, but they really feast on the dead, like buzzards. Okay, that's what they're after. And I think, like Alan said, they were expendable. They were also not a bird that you would make an offering with. Yeah. So when he sent because he said, didn't God tell him to keep 7 of all the fowl? So he was pretty expendable. He was not going to be anything of value. So they sent him out. He flew back and forth, I guess, across the ark, and he could see him flying back and forth. But he never went anywhere. Didn't come back to the ark either. So he must have found some kind of food on there. Even if it's been a year, I still think there's rotting stuff out there for a raven to eat. You know, that's something worth finding. This is
But it
just
was dead.
Mark now. Don't get this is in the Bible or anything. This is just Mark. What?
Whatever he found would have been dead,
Yes.
which meant there was no life.
Also meant there was really no dry ground.
Right, right.
Okay, so next, what did Noah do? He sent out a dove. Now, help me out here for a second. He sent the first dove out, and it came back. In your Bible, how long before he sent out the second?
7 days.
7 days. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So there, but how long after he sent the raven out did he send the dove out?
After 40 days, Noah opened the window and he sent out the raven.
Doesn't say how long, it says, and then he sent out the dove.
Yeah.
Right. Keep that in mind for a second. I'm gonna ask a question like, it's, cause it kinda threw me when I was reading through this the very first time. So Noah sent out the dove and it came back. Then he sent out the second dove 7 days later. And it came back with an olive branch. And then he waited another 7 days. And then he sent out the third one. And it did not return. So what did that mean?
He lived somewhere.
He found a
Found
place.
dry land.
He found dry
Well,
land.
on top of everything else, again, you have to remember the context too. The flood of the earth didn't leave plant or more animal alive. So again, there had been some foliage that had started to grow again.
Right, but now, not saying it didn't leave it alive. It didn't say, it mainly made the point of everything that creepeth and breathed and walked and crawled. It really didn't say that the plants were all gone.
Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out.
That breed. That
And
life.
it says, and, was wiped out, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground.
Right.
The bird of the air wiped out from the earth.
Right. So it wasn't like plants.
Because that's what I was,
didn't take it as plants.
that's what I was
Am
wondering.
am I wrong about that? Cause I'm not saying, I just always.
I was,
think that.
I'm under the assumption, that he wiped out everything. Because this made a holy bird thing. This was,
But I'm gonna say this, you can have seeds that lay there forever and come up.
Right, no, I'm not saying, I'm saying that if
You can also-
there was nothing living on the earth besides Noah and his family. That's,
I can't disagree with you. All I'm saying is, I always took it that the plants made it in some way, whether they went dormant or, you know, whatever.
I mean, most plants would have died anyway, because the water died.
Waterlogged.
That's what I was wondering was, because to get a branch, it's gonna have to have grown for a while,
Or,
you know, and which it only would have had less than a year if you consider the 40 days, 40 nights of the rain, and then you had the days that everything was still covered with water.
Okay, so I'm gonna take what I know. Even after a flood and the ground is completely covered and the plants are completely submerged, yes, they will come back. There will be growth back up
There
underneath
will
the
be,
flood.
Right, but
Yeah.
how long would it take for a tree to grow enough to have a branch like that?
I don't know.
That's
So-
what I'm
But,
wondering.
So you could also-
but again, we're talking about that it could have been out of the water a lot longer than no one knew.
True.
But-
Evidently, the window,
Right.
you couldn't see out. I'm thinking
I
you
think
could
it
only
went
see up,
up.
yeah.
But I mean, I could see that the water hadn't receded, but yet the tree was above water.
Could have been.
Okay, I mean, I could go with that.
well, it's also, don't throw the baby out with bathwater. Also, remember that God could have been involved in that
Oh,
process.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, we're looking at a completely naturalistic view of
Yeah.
how things may have happened.
Let me,
In my Bible says a leaf. I mean, it could be
Yeah,
a
well-
little sprout.
well, see, that's what
Okay.
mine says is a leaf.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
Didn't have to be
Many people always
tree.
thought it was an olive branch, and I don't know if
Right.
the King James Version says olive branch,
Right.
but mine says olive leaf, and I've got, you know. So it could have been a very small twig.
right,
And besides, the dove's not real big anyway, he's not carrying,
Yeah.
you know,
big
like,
branch.
well, like my dog will pick up, you know, half a tree and try to take it.
Yeah.
So, you know, but the main thing, let me go back again. Many people feel like it was 21 days. You know, like it was the raven and he waited a week and it was, and when I read it, I don't see a timeline between the raven and the first dove. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean,
God's timing.
Well, there's a difference in an olive leaf and an olive stem.
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
My Bible says an olive leaf.
That's what it said.
And well, the leaf means it was alive. It could have been a
right, there was something living, that was the representation of it.
All I know, I've fished on the river before. I've got hung up, and when I brought it in, green
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think too, we're looking at this is a radical change. The earth it's not like, again, we have a representation of what a flood looks like on a river, but this is so much different. This was so much more violent, so much more,
Okay, so let me ask, this is a question, this is more for me. See what y'all. God created the earth in 7 days, or actually 6. Why did it take God a year to do away? Was he?
Because it's always harder to remodel than to build.
you gotta tear out and rebuild.
My question is, was he working himself totally in the confines of how the world worked, you know, the natural way of things? I don't know. I don't have an answer. It was just, this was one of those questions, when you read this, that I go like, why?
Well, that thought inevitably leads you to think that, okay, well, then, an earthquake that happened somewhere in the world, God didn't make that happen, it was just, he created creation to operate on its own without his intervention. And just
I
the
don't-
flooding itself was done,
I don't go with that.
and
That's-
but that's the natural line of thought that you
Yeah, I
have
mean,
with
you-
God not
I
intervening.
don't take that
in creation.
complete deal, but I do take that God works within the confines of natural elements. You know, he doesn't magically do things.
Except when he does.
Well, no, I mean, he's not magically making the earth rotate, it's all in his plan. You know.
Right, but there is, again, you're talking about natural and supernatural. There are things that are supernatural he does.
Well, especially in the spirit side with us, I can deal with
But
that.
even more than that, so I mean, you're talking about, just as an example, that you have virgin birth is a supernatural thing. It is not of nature.
I'm not disagreeing.
So that's what I'm saying. It's hard to stay
All
with
I'm
this
trying-
statement.
All I'm trying to say is, I don't have an answer to this. It's just a question, and maybe I shouldn't even brought it up, so. But we can go with 21 days. Hallelujah. 1 month and 28 days later. So the last dove comes back. And Noah doesn't just immediately go out the door, does he? What does he do? Then God said to Noah, come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and your wives and bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number. I didn't get the end right, but 1 month, 28 days later, he tore open the roof. All over his dry ground. God told him to leave. Get out. Now, sometimes, this could bring us to the last little point of the fight. Sometimes when God puts us in a spot and we become very comfortable in that spot, we don't sometimes want to leave that spot. Noah and his family felt safe in the ark, did they not?
Yeah.
Say it again.
Noah and his family felt safe in the ark, did they not? Because it was their refuge for a year.
I don't know that I entirely agree with just the idea that they were hiding out of there because that was the safe place to be.
I'm not saying they were hiding out because.
Well, they also didn't have anywhere else to go. I
I'm
mean,
saying-
it was the
I'm
ark,
saying
all we
that-
had.
I'm not saying it like that, son. I'm not saying that they
Right.
took it as safe because it was their comfort zone or whatever. What I'm saying is this was the safe place that God put them.
Mhm.
And it's very easy to become fearful of the next step God gives them.
I also, this is me looking at the literary side of what Moses is writing here. I think Moses is showing that Noah was continuing in his faithfulness. Because again, Noah had evidence. There is land, right? He had the dove come back, right? He knew there's land and there's plants living on the land. But he didn't leave.
He was obedient.
He was waiting for God to give him.
Obedient.
God's timing.
He was being obedient to God and continue, because again, that's the whole theme of Noah. He was the only man who was obedient to God, right? He continues to do so until, yes.
If you just witnessed what he'd witnessed, I'd stay in that ark too.
Yeah.
But
So
you
God
can
said
also,
something.
you
See,
also
and that's
think
Mark's
that
point too. I mean, there's some of this that, you know, he's doing the last thing God told him to do until
Right.
God tells
Stay
him
in
to
the
do
ark.
something else.
God shut him in.
And
It wasn't-
and I but I
That's
also
what Alan said. Say it again, Alan.
I said, you know, God told him to go to the ark, and he's going to stay there until God tells him to do something else.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, in that vein, I see your point. I see the point of, you know, this is the place that God sent me to be. This is the safe place. I'm staying until God says something different.
Yeah, till he just forces you
And-
to go.
And so, you know, it, you know, it would have been disobedient of Noah to go ahead of God's timing. And so that
I-
talks to your, you know,
Right.
your point in this. And so,
Yeah.
I think it depends on how you're going to apply it,
Yeah.
not how you're going to describe it or decide what it means.
I think you have to be really careful in this instance to put yourself into that situation. Like like you're plugging a theme that Noah was in the ark. We don't really know the motive of Noah why he stayed in the
I'm
ark,
not
other than
I'm not speaking to Noah's motive. That's not what I'm speaking of. I'm talking about how that you can become comfortable when God puts you in a place that you feel safe and protected.
So this is the application, and the application is really simple. We could actually get complacent and comfortable and sit and not look for God's work. I mean, the application is no question you could take this passage and apply it that way. There's a lesson in that. Zach's right in that the number one lesson in this is Noah's faithfulness. You know, that's the primary. But as with every piece of scripture we come across, there's only one meaning. There's endless application. And that endless application we do in a faithful kind of way. We rightly handle the scriptures so that we can help people grow in faith. If I go through the Bible and I just tell you what it means, we have missed the point of preaching altogether.
So that's it. The other thing that's there.
Let me come back. I am not questioning that this is about Noah's faithfulness. What I'm questioning is Noah's faithfulness should apply to us.
In our experience, how would we have reacted in this situation, and what could happen, and should we take a lesson from Noah?
Well, the reason I think that we can't necessarily apply the idea, like what you're talking about, of how we can become complacent in our safety that God got us in that moment, I think that is applicable, but not to this specific instance. I think that instance is going to be later on in chapter 9 where Noah committed his sin, right?
Yeah, but I see it in this one. So let me tell you, if I were preaching this, the application. Okay. This place that Noah found himself in became his whole world. Everything that he knew, everything that he thought he knew, everything that he loved was in that place. And I think as human beings, we can find those kinds of places, like in a church. This is the church I know. This is the church I love. This is this group of people that gather here. And in as such, when we know, as human nature goes, that we can become complacent, but you got to understand, Noah didn't get complacent.
No, it was, yeah.
So Noah, he kept sending birds out. He's still looking for God's handiwork. But in the meantime, I think our lesson from him is to, wherever we find God place us, we should not get complacent. And that's a church, that's a job, that's a school, it's everything. Everywhere we find that God puts us, we have the propensity to become comfortable and complacent.
It's a home.
Right.
Yeah,
People
Oh,
don't
yeah,
want
it's
to
your
come to
safe
church
place,
now
yeah.
because, they're comfortable there and they can
Yeah.
see it on TV.
Yeah, and by the way, I hope people come here and are uncomfortable.
You hope what? I didn't hear you.
People come here and are uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Because he's really not doing his job.
that's right.
Right.
That's right.
So that I agree. I agree with
Do you see what I'm saying? It's just
I agree.
it's just an application. This isn't a lecture on Noah. This is a proclamation of application.
This is
And so
this is a statement of don't become.
I agree that application can be there. My only hesitation to do that is I'm making a great leap with it because again we don't see that. It's not what happened. No one didn't. We're warning of what could happen if this were to happen.
Did I be laying the ground?
Well, and that's fine. You can do that, but you need to let Scripture do that. So don't
No.
lay in the legwork.
Okay, wait. I've let Scripture do that. I'm just laying an idea.
I get what you're saying, but you need to wait until that application happens because Noah truly does become complacent. Noah is now finished, right? My thought on the application of this set is Noah is faithful from the point in which he's basically born, right? He's the only one that's faithful to all of the earth. He's faithful in his service and proclamation of God. He's faithful in the building of the ark. He's faithful in being in the ark. He's faithful up until the point. Now he continues to be faithful. Then God calls him out of the ark, right? And then we see later on he goes in and he's faithful in sacrifice. Well, hold on. But then at the end, you see him relax, right? So to me, I think that's where you can apply. Where we can.
okay, so you're saying you shouldn't talk about it until he does, and Mark's
Right.
anticipating it.
Right. Right, because again, you need to continue on with the reading of what you're saying, because I don't think that's applicable in this instance.
Gotcha.
I think that's
Which is why you and I can preach this passage and it not look like plagiarism.
right. No, I don't agree, or I don't disagree with the original
Yeah.
application. I just don't think it quite fits as well here as it does in the next chapter for me. That's just me.
After a long, hard challenge, what did you say?
Oh, it was a segue.
It's
To a series.
cliffhanger. Zach, what's a cliffhanger?
It was
I don't do cliffhangers.
it was a segue.
I just had to let it go for a minute, sorry.
It's awesome.
It's hard for me because I think if you're carrying on a theme, it's hard to cut off in the middle of what theme.
Yeah, but you can't stay forever.
No, I agree.
I mean-
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Any questions before I throw this out? So there you go, because we went,
Well, the one thing we haven't talked about is the ventilation system on that ark.
Listen,
I bet it was so swampy.
if you
And I would be willing to say, no, we're ready to get off of it.
it's I'm just saying if you go see the Ark Encounter in Kentucky and and there's signs everywhere saying that they took creative license in their because you're great liberty, but oh my goodness, there was a ventilation system and it was caused by the ballast against the water and how the water rose and fell in two different towers, and as it did that, it sucked air in from one place and took it out through the vents in the top and shows exactly how it's all circulating through there. And I'm not saying that would, make it smell good,
Tolerable, yeah.
but I think it would make it not kill you. A year full of not being able to remove stuff. I don't know.
It'd be as soon as it quit raining, them birds would be leaving. Go find something.
At least pop a window, man, get some air.
Getting used to the smell too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hate that, like you can get, yeah.
Yeah, I raise pigs.
Yeah, there's no getting used to that.
Yep, you still smell.
Well, there is indication there that there was some sort of supernatural event going on for animals to be able to be in that small space
Well,
for that time.
let me throw it like this. So somebody was, and I think we talked about it in a few minutes before, but how did all the animals get fed? And I go, well, remember, Jesus fed the 5,000.
Right.
If Jesus could feed the 5,000 off the fishes and loaves, he could multiply the food and God.
well, and was it Mary, I think, said that they actually had a garden in the ark?
That's what she
Is
said.
that right? Yeah, that they had a garden and they grew
They
things.
fertilize.
Yeah, they had plenty of fertilizer, yeah. But you would never think of that,
I know.
know?
No problem, no sunlight.
But they had to do something, they worked while they were in the ark,
Gosh, they were,
Actually,
I don't think
Yeah.
they were not busy.
Oh, yeah.
How do we know that?
Because it talks about it. But there was a gap. I leave a gap. There's a gap. Top roof. Okay, enough of that. I'm gonna think about that week again, so I don't know. We'll come back and we're gonna talk about him doing the offering and stuff next week. The downfall. I don't know if we'll get that far or not. We'll just see. All right, Barbie, dismiss us, would you?
Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for this study tonight, Lord. Help us thank you for letting us ask questions and, Lord, just dig deeper into your word. Thank you for Mark for bringing it to us and for giving him the words and the way to do this for us. Lord, just be with each and every one of us today as we leave and we go out into the world. Help us, Lord, to witness to those that need to hear about it. Watch over us, keep us safe. Be with us as we come back next Sunday. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Chapter